When 52-year-old Tom Bennett first heard his late wife's Parrot speak those haunting words, he froze in complete shock. The phrases weren't random chatter, they were pieces of a puzzle that would unravel a family secret no one was prepared to face. Tom had always thought he knew everything about his wife Clara. They had been married for 23 years, built a life together, shared dreams and disappointments. But as he stood in their empty living room, staring at the emerald-green African gray parrot perched in the corner, he realized that Clara had taken secrets to her grave. It had been 3 weeks since the accident. 3 weeks since that rainy Tuesday morning when Clara's car skidded off the mountain road on her way to work. 3 weeks since Tom's world collapsed into a void of grief and guilt that seemed impossible to escape. The funeral had been a blur of condolences and casseroles. Friends and family members came and went, offering their support, but Tom felt completely alone. The house felt cavernous without Clara's laughter echoing through the hallways, without her humming while she cooked dinner, without her gentle voice calling him to bed each night. And then there was Polly. Clara had adopted the parrot just 6 months before her death, claiming she needed a companion during the long hours when Tom was away at the office. Tom had protested initially. He was working 16-hour days trying to secure a major promotion, and the last thing he wanted was a noisy bird disrupting his already limited time at home. But Clara had been insistent. "She needs a home, Tom," she had said, her brown eyes pleading. "And maybe I need her too." Now, as Tom sat in his leather recliner, the same chair where he used to review contracts while Clara watched television, Polly began to speak. "Don't leave me," the parrot squawked, her voice eerily similar to Clara's soft tone. "Please don't leave me, Tom." Tom's coffee mug slipped from his fingers, crashing onto the hardwood floor. His heart hammered against his ribs as he stared at the bird. African gray parrots were known for their intelligence and ability to mimic human speech, but this felt different. This felt personal. "Don't leave me," Polly repeated, tilting her gray head to the side. "I'm sorry, my love. I'm so sorry." The words hit Tom like a physical blow. Clara had never apologized for anything during their marriage. She was too proud, too stubborn. What could she possibly have been sorry about? Over the next few days, Polly's phrases became more frequent and more disturbing. She would repeat the same words over and over: "Don't leave me, I'm sorry, my love," and sometimes, "I changed my mind. I changed my mind." Tom found himself obsessing over every word. He began recording Polly's speech on his phone, playing it back at night when sleep eluded him. The parrot's words seemed to carry an urgency, a message that Clara had somehow left behind. The more Tom listened, the more he began to suspect that these weren't random phrases Polly had picked up from television or casual conversation. They felt too specific, too emotional. They felt like Clara's final words, words that Tom had never heard. Sleep became impossible. Tom would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the last few months of his marriage. Had Clara seemed different? Had she been trying to tell him something? The guilt was overwhelming. Tom knew he had been a terrible husband in those final months. The promotion had consumed him completely. He left the house before Clara woke up and returned long after she had gone to bed. Their conversations had dwindled to brief exchanges about bills and grocery lists. But Clara had seemed understanding. She had always been understanding about his career, his ambitions. She had built her own life around his schedule, never complaining, never demanding more attention. Or had she? Tom began searching through Clara's belongings, looking for clues. He examined her journal, but the entries were mundane: grocery lists, reminders about doctor appointments, notes about Polly's care. Nothing that suggested marital problems or hidden secrets. Then, on a Thursday evening exactly 1 month after Clara's death, Polly delivered a phrase that changed everything. "I can't do this anymore, Tom," the parrot squawked, her voice breaking slightly the way Clara's did when she was upset. "I can't be alone all the time." Tom's legs gave out beneath him. He sank onto the couch, his mind reeling. When had Clara said those words? When had she felt so alone that she had spoken them aloud, not knowing that Polly was listening, recording, preparing to replay them like a ghostly echo? The next morning, Tom called in sick to work for the first time in 5 years. He spent the entire day with Polly, hoping to hear more, desperate to understand what his wife had been feeling in her final months. As if sensing his distress, Polly became more talkative. New phrases emerged throughout the day. "Maybe it's better this way." "He doesn't see me anymore." "I miss the man I married." Each word was like a dagger to Tom's heart. Clara had been suffering, had been lonely, and he had been too blind to see it. Too consumed with spreadsheets and client meetings to notice that his wife was disappearing right in front of him. By evening, Tom was convinced that Clara had been planning to leave him. The phrases made sense now. She had been preparing to end their marriage, had been talking to herself or perhaps to Polly about her decision. But then why had she seemed so normal in those final days? Why hadn't she confronted him? Why hadn't she asked for a divorce? The questions tormented him through another sleepless night. Before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. On Friday morning, Tom made a decision that would change his understanding of everything. He drove to Clara's office, a small nonprofit organization where she had worked as a coordinator for the past 8 years. Her supervisor, Janet, welcomed him with sad eyes and a warm hug. "How are you holding up, Tom?" "I'm struggling," he admitted. "Janet, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Was she happy? In those last few months, did she seem different to you?" Janet's expression grew troubled. She led Tom to a quiet conference room and closed the door. "Tom, I've been wondering if I should have said something sooner," she began. Clara did seem different. Starting around Christmas, she became more withdrawn. She would stare out the window during lunch breaks, and sometimes I would catch her crying at her desk. Tom's heart sank. "Did she say anything about us? About our marriage?" "She mentioned that you were working a lot. She said she felt like she was living with a stranger." Janet paused, clearly uncomfortable. "But Tom, she also said something else. She said she was thinking about making some changes." The words confirmed Tom's worst fears. Clara had been planning to leave him. That weekend, Tom barely left the house. He sat with Polly, listening to her repeat Clara's words, trying to piece together the timeline of his wife's emotional journey. He imagined Clara talking to the parrot late at night, sharing her loneliness and frustration with the only listener she had. On Sunday evening, as rain drummed against the windows, the same sound that had accompanied Clara's final drive, Polly spoke a phrase that made Tom's blood run cold. "I wrote it all down," the parrot said clearly. "I wrote it all down, my love." Tom's eyes widened. A letter. Clara had written him a letter. He spent the next 3 hours tearing through the house, searching every drawer, every closet, every possible hiding place. He found nothing. Then, at nearly midnight, As he sat exhausted in Clara's home office, Polly flew from her perch and landed on Clara's desk. The parrot walked to the edge of the desk and tapped her beak against a small wooden jewelry box that Tom had given Clara for their 10th anniversary. "I wrote it all down," Polly repeated, staring directly at Tom. With trembling hands, Tom opened the jewelry box. Beneath Clara's pearl necklace and wedding ring, he found a folded piece of paper. His name was written on the outside in Clara's careful handwriting. Tom's hands shook as he unfolded the letter. The date at the top was just 1 week before Clara's accident. "My dearest Tom," the letter began. "I don't know if I'll ever have the courage to give you this letter, but I need to write down what's in my heart. I know you've been working so hard for our future, and I love your ambition and dedication. But somewhere along the way, I lost you. We stopped talking, stopped laughing together, stopped being partners. I became invisible in our own home. For weeks, I've been thinking about leaving. I've been imagining a life where I wouldn't have to compete with your job for your attention, where I wouldn't feel like an inconvenience in your schedule. But then you gave me Polly. At first, I was just grateful to have some company during those long evenings alone. But as I watched her, as I talked to her, I realized something important. Love isn't just about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about choosing to stay, choosing to fight for what matters. I've been talking to Polly about my feelings, about my loneliness, about my doubts. She listens without judgment, and somehow, speaking my fears aloud has helped me understand them better. Tom, I don't want to leave you. I want to save our marriage. I want to find our way back to each other. I've been preparing what I want to say to you, practicing with Polly as my audience. I want to tell you how much I miss you, how much I need you to see me again. Not as the woman who manages the household or handles the social obligations, but as your wife, your partner, your best friend. I'm planning to talk to you this weekend. I'm going to ask you to take some time off work so we can reconnect. Maybe we can go away together, just the two of us, and remember why we fell in love. I hope you'll listen. I hope you'll choose us. I'm sorry for letting my doubts grow so strong before finding the courage to speak. I'm sorry for all the times I stayed silent when I should have fought for us. But mostly, I'm sorry that it took the possibility of losing you to realize how much I want to stay. All my love, Clara. P.S. Take care of Polly. She's been my confidant through all of this, and she loves you as much as I do. Tom's vision blurred as tears streamed down his face. Clara hadn't been planning to leave him, she had been planning to save their marriage. She had been preparing to fight for them. The phrases Polly had been repeating weren't Clara's final words of desperation, they were her rehearsals for the conversation that never happened. She had been practicing what she wanted to say to Tom, using Polly as her audience, preparing to pour her heart out and ask him to choose their marriage over his career. But the accident had stolen that opportunity forever. Tom looked at Polly, who was still perched on the desk, watching him with intelligent dark eyes. She loved me, Tom whispered, his voice breaking. She was going to fight for us. Don't leave me, Polly said softly, as if responding to his pain. I changed my mind. I changed my mind. Now Tom understood. Clara had changed her mind about leaving. She had chosen love, chosen to stay, chosen to fight. The accident had happened just days after she wrote the letter, just days before she planned to have the conversation that might have saved everything. Tom spent the night crying, for Clara, for their lost chance, for the conversation they would never have. But slowly, through his grief, something else began to emerge, a sense of peace he hadn't felt since Clara's death. She had loved him. Even in her loneliness, even in her doubt, she had loved him enough to stay, to fight, to choose their marriage over her own pain. In the days that followed, Tom made changes that Clara would never see but that honored her memory and her love. He requested a transfer to a less demanding position, trading the promotion he had worked so hard for in exchange for a life that had room for relationships and meaning. He began talking to Polly every evening, sharing his day, his thoughts, his memories of Clara. The parrot seemed to understand, often responding with gentle chirps or by nuzzling against his hand. Sometimes, when Tom felt overwhelmed by loneliness, Polly would speak Clara's words, "I love you, my darling." It was a phrase Tom had never heard the parrot say before finding the letter, but one that Clara must have practiced, must have planned to say during their weekend conversation. 3 months after finding Clara's letter, Tom established a foundation in her name, focused on supporting marriage counseling services for couples struggling with work-life balance. He knew Clara would have loved the irony, his greatest professional success growing out of his willingness to step back from professional ambition. Tom never remarried, but he was no longer alone. Polly became his constant companion, his link to Clara, his reminder that love is about choosing to stay even when staying is difficult. On quiet evenings, as Tom read in his chair with Polly perched nearby, he would sometimes hear her whisper Clara's final practiced words, "I choose us, Tom. I choose us." What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, more incredible stories are coming soon.